She donated blood every month for 2 years. Then one morning, a black luxury car stopped outside her tiny apartment. A man in an expensive suit stepped out carrying a thick envelope. He looked around the crumbling neighborhood as if he had never been there before. When he finally found her door, his hands were shaking. And the first thing he said changed her life forever. "Miss Emily Carter, the child you've been saving all this time is the son of one of the richest men in this country." Emily stared at him. For a moment, she thought it was some kind of joke, because nothing about her life felt connected to billionaires. Nothing. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment above an old grocery store. She worked double shifts at a nursing home. Most months, she barely had enough money left after paying rent and utilities. Her shoes were worn out. Her refrigerator was almost empty. And yet every single month, without fail, she walked into the same hospital and donated blood. She never missed an appointment. Not once. What she didn't know was that those donations were keeping a little boy alive. And that boy's father had spent 2 years desperately trying to find the stranger who refused to stop helping his son. But before we get to that, you need to understand why Emily started donating in the first place. Because this story didn't begin with kindness. It began with heartbreak. 5 years earlier, Emily had been excited about becoming a mother. She and her husband Daniel had spent months preparing for their baby. They painted a small nursery, bought tiny clothes, picked out names. They imagined birthdays, school graduations, family vacations. Everything seemed perfect. Until one terrible afternoon. At 7 months pregnant, Emily began experiencing severe complications. Doctors rushed her into emergency treatment. She prayed. Daniel prayed. Everyone prayed. But despite every effort, their baby didn't survive. The loss shattered her. For months, Emily could barely get out of bed. The nursery remained untouched. The tiny clothes stayed folded in drawers. Every corner of the apartment reminded her of what she had lost. Daniel tried to be supportive at first, but grief affected him differently. Instead of facing the pain together, they slowly drifted apart. Arguments became common. Silence became normal. And eventually, Daniel left. Just like that, Emily found herself completely alone. No child. No marriage. No future that looked anything like the one she had imagined. Some people become bitter after experiences like that. Emily almost did. But then something unexpected happened. One day, she was sitting in a hospital waiting room after a routine checkup. Across from her sat a young mother holding a sick little girl. The child looked pale and weak. The mother looked exhausted. Emily overheard doctors discussing blood shortages. Certain patients desperately needed regular transfusions. Without enough donors, treatment became difficult. The little girl smiled at Emily. Just a small smile. But it stayed with her. That evening, Emily couldn't stop thinking about it. For the first time in years, her pain wasn't the only thing occupying her mind. Someone else was suffering too. And maybe there was something she could do. The next week, she donated blood. It wasn't a grand gesture. Nobody applauded. Nobody celebrated. She simply sat in a chair for a few minutes and went home. But something felt different. For the first time since losing her baby, she felt useful, needed, connected to something larger than her own sadness. So she returned the following month, then the month after that, and eventually it became part of her life. What Emily never realized was that one particular donation, recipient depended heavily on rare blood matches. A young boy named Noah. Noah was only 6 years old when doctors diagnosed him with a rare blood disorder. His condition required regular transfusions. Missing treatments could become life-threatening. His father, Victor Langston, had money beyond imagination. Private jets, luxury homes, entire companies. Yet none of that could guarantee his son's health. No matter how much money Victor spent, he couldn't buy compatible blood. He couldn't purchase perfect donors. And every time Noah needed treatment, doctors worried about availability. Then something unusual started happening. A consistent donor appeared in hospital records. Month after month. Year after year. Reliable. Healthy. Always available. The donor remained anonymous. Hospital policies protected identities. But doctors quietly noticed something remarkable. Emily's donations repeatedly helped support Noah's treatment needs. Without realizing it, she became one of the most dependable contributors to his care. Meanwhile, Noah's condition stabilized. His doctors were encouraged. Victor was relieved. Yet he remained haunted by one question. Who was helping save his son's life? The hospital couldn't tell him. And regulations prevented access to donor information. Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone Noah reached, Victor thought about the unknown donor, the stranger who kept showing up, the stranger who expected absolutely nothing in return. Then came the event that changed everything. One winter evening, Noah experienced a severe medical crisis. Doctors worked through the night. Machines beeped constantly. Nurses rushed through hallways. Victor sat beside his son's bed, terrified he might lose him. The situation became critical. Noah urgently needed another transfusion. Fortunately, compatible blood was available. The treatment worked. Noah survived. But afterward, one exhausted doctor made an offhand comment. Victor's heart sank. Anonymous donor. Again. Always the anonymous donor. Always the unseen person helping his child survive. That night, Victor made a decision. He was going to find them. No matter how long it took. No matter how difficult it became. He hired investigators, legal consultants, medical compliance experts, not to violate privacy laws, but to explore every legitimate avenue available. Months passed. Nothing. Then more months. Still nothing. Every lead reached a dead end. The donor remained invisible. Meanwhile, Emily continued living her simple life. She had no idea a billionaire was searching for her. No idea private investigators had spent thousands of hours trying to identify her. No idea her name had become one of the biggest mysteries in Victor Langston's life. Then fate intervened. One afternoon, Emily arrived at the hospital for another routine donation. A newly hired administrator accidentally mentioned something she wasn't supposed to. Not names. Not identities. Just enough information to connect certain records. The mistake was small, but it created a trail. A trail investigators finally followed. And when Victor received the report, he was stunned. The woman helping save his son wasn't a wealthy philanthropist. She wasn't famous. She wasn't connected to powerful organizations. She was a nursing home worker earning just enough to survive. A woman who often skipped buying things for herself. A woman who took the bus to work. A woman who had suffered unimaginable loss. Yet she continued giving. Month after month. Year after year. Victor stared at her file for a long time. Then he noticed something else. Something that hit him even harder. Emily had never requested recognition. Never asked for compensation. Never sought attention. In fact, she didn't even know who benefited from her donations. She simply kept showing up because she believed it was the right thing to do. For the first time in a very long time, Victor felt humbled. Because despite all his wealth, he wasn't sure he possessed that kind of generosity. And that realization would lead him to make a decision that nobody saw coming. Especially Emily. Because the black car parked outside her apartment wasn't arriving to deliver a thank you letter. It was arriving to offer something that would completely transform her future. But when Victor's representative handed her the envelope, Emily shocked everyone by refusing to open the envelope. The man in the expensive suit looked confused. "Miss Carter, are you sure?" he asked. Emily folded her arms. "I don't know what's inside, but if this is money, I don't want it." The man blinked. Most people would have opened the envelope before he finished speaking. Some would have demanded more. Others would have called friends and family immediately. But Emily didn't even look at it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, the man smiled slightly. By the end of the conversation, something unexpected happened. They weren't strangers anymore. They understood each other's pain. And that connection would soon become far more important than either realized. Because another crisis was coming. A much bigger one. Just 3 months later, Noah's condition suddenly worsened. Doctors became concerned. Tests revealed complications nobody expected. His treatment plan needed significant changes. Victor was devastated. He thought the worst years were behind them. Instead, new challenges appeared. For the first time in months, fear returned. The same fear he had lived with since Noah's diagnosis. Emily heard the news through Victor. Without hesitation, she began visiting the hospital. At first, she simply wanted to encourage Noah. The little boy already knew who she was. Victor had explained everything. To Noah, Emily wasn't just a donor. She was a hero. Every time she visited, his face lit up. They played board games, read books, talked about school, discussed superheroes. Slowly, a friendship formed. And during one of those visits, Noah revealed something heartbreaking. "Can I tell you a secret?" Emily smiled. "Of course." The boy looked down. "Sometimes I pretend I'm healthy." Emily felt her chest tighten. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. "At school, I tell people I'll be able to play sports one day." His eyes filled with tears. "But I don't know if that's true." Emily didn't know how to respond. Children weren't supposed to carry worries like that. Children were supposed to dream freely. Instead, Noah spent his life thinking about hospitals, needles, treatments, survival. That conversation stayed with her. 4 days, then weeks, and eventually it inspired her to make a decision that would change far more lives than she imagined. Using her small savings, Emily organized a community blood drive. Nothing fancy, just a local event, a few flyers, some volunteers, a borrowed community center. She hoped maybe 20 people would attend. Instead, over 200 showed up. Then local news stations covered the story. The story spread. More blood drives followed. Different neighborhoods joined. Different towns participated. Thousands of donations were collected. People inspired other people. One act of kindness created another, and another, and another. What started with a grieving woman sitting in a donation chair had become something much larger. Victor watched it happen with amazement. The movement kept growing. Eventually, hospitals across the region reported improved blood supplies. Lives were being saved. Not just Noah's, countless others. Then came another unexpected twist. It wasn't. One evening, Victor received a phone call from his legal team. The investigation concerned Noah's medical history, specifically his late mother's family records. At first, he assumed it was business-related, and what investigators discovered stunned everyone. For years, doctors believed Noah's condition was simply an unfortunate genetic disorder, but new evidence suggested something different, something hidden, something nobody had considered. There was another biological relative, a close one, a relative whose medical history could potentially help Noah's treatment. The problem? Nobody knew where that person was. And when investigators finally tracked the records, Victor nearly dropped the phone, because the name connected to those records was one he already knew very well. It was someone sitting right in front of him just days earlier. Someone Noah trusted. Someone who had become part of their lives. Someone neither Victor nor Emily ever expected to see connected to this story. And when the truth finally emerged, it would reveal a secret buried for more than 25 years. A secret that would change everything they thought they knew, including Emily herself. The moment Victor heard the name, he thought there had to be some mistake. He asked the investigator to repeat it. Then he asked again. The answer never changed. The records pointed to Emily Carter. Victor sat frozen. How was that possible? Emily wasn't related to Noah. At least, that was what everyone believed. Yet the documents suggested there was a biological connection, somewhere in the family tree. A connection nobody had ever known about. Victor immediately arranged another investigation. This time, the researchers dug deeper. Old hospital records, birth certificates, adoption documents, family archives. The truth emerged piece by piece. And when it finally came together, it sounded unbelievable. 26 years earlier, Emily's mother had given birth to twin girls. Emily was one of them. But shortly after birth, tragedy struck. The family experienced severe financial hardship. Medical complications followed. In the chaos, the twins were separated. Emily remained with her parents. The other baby was quietly adopted through a private arrangement. The family never spoke about it again. Years passed. The secret stayed buried. Emily grew up never knowing she had a sister. And that sister eventually became Noah's mother. Victor stared at the report in disbelief. That meant Noah wasn't a complete stranger to Emily after all. He was her nephew, her biological nephew. The child she had unknowingly helped save for 2 years was family. Victor could hardly process it. Neither could the investigators. The odds seemed impossible. Out of millions of people, out of countless blood donors, out of every possible outcome, Emily had been helping her own nephew without knowing it. When Victor finally told her, she thought he was joking. Then she saw the documents, the records, the photographs, the evidence. Her hands trembled. She sat silently for several minutes. A sister. She had a sister. An entire person had existed somewhere in the world all these years. Someone who shared her blood. Someone she never met. Someone who was now gone. Because Noah's mother had passed away several years earlier after a sudden illness. The revelation brought both joy and heartbreak. Joy because Emily discovered family she never knew existed. Heartbreak because she would never meet her sister, never hear her voice, never learn her favorite songs, never share memories, never ask the thousands of questions filling her mind. But there was one thing she still had. Noah, her nephew, the living connection to the sister she lost before she even knew she existed. The next time Emily visited the hospital, she looked at Noah differently. Not because she loved him more. She already cared deeply about him. But now she understood why she had always felt unusually connected to him. Why protecting him felt personal. Why his struggles affected her so strongly. Noah noticed immediately. "Why are you crying?" he asked. "I'm happy." Emily laughed through her tears. The little boy tilted his head. People usually smile when they're happy. That made her laugh even harder. Then she pulled him into a hug. A long hug. The kind family gives each other. Because now she knew. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. Months passed. Doctors continued working on Noah's treatment. The newly discovered family connection provided useful medical information. It wasn't a miracle cure, but it helped. And every small advantage mattered. Noah slowly became stronger. Not overnight. Not dramatically. But steadily. Each month brought progress. More energy. More confidence. More hope. Then came another surprise. One afternoon, Victor invited Emily to lunch. She assumed it would be another casual meeting. Instead, Victor arrived carrying a folder. The same serious expression he used during major business negotiations. Emily immediately became nervous. "What happened?" she asked. Victor smiled. "Nothing bad." Then he slid the folder across the table. Inside were plans, architectural drawings, financial projections, community proposals. Emily looked confused. "What is this?" Victor leaned forward. "Remember those blood drives you started?" "Of course." "What if we made them permanent?" Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" Victor pointed at the documents. "A foundation." She blinked. "A foundation?" "A nationwide organization dedicated to blood donation awareness." Emily stared at him. Victor continued. "Donor support and helping families facing medical crises. You inspired thousands of people. Imagine what you could do with real resources." Emily couldn't speak. The proposal was enormous. Medical partnerships, community outreach programs, mobile donation centers, scholarships, support networks, everything she dreamed of helping with, but on a scale she never imagined possible. Victor had already committed millions of dollars to the project. The only thing missing was her answer. Emily looked at him. "Why me?" Victor smiled. "The answer came instantly. Because none of this would exist without you." Several months later, the Emily Carter Foundation officially launched. The response exceeded every expectation. Donations increased across the country. Thousands of new volunteers joined. Lives were saved. Families received support. Patients found hope. And through it all, Emily remained exactly who she had always been. Kind, humble, compassionate. She never treated herself like a hero. Whenever reporters asked why she started donating blood, she always gave the same answer. Someone needed help. Simple, honest, powerful. Then came the moment nobody would ever forget. Nearly 3 years after the black car first arrived outside her apartment, the foundation hosted a national celebration honoring blood donors. Hundreds of guests attended. Doctors, patients, families, volunteers, medical professionals, supporters. The event was broadcast live. Emily expected to give a short speech. Nothing more. Instead, Victor had planned something special. As she stepped onto the stage, the lights dimmed. A video began playing. It showed families whose lives had been saved through blood donations. Parents, children, grandparents, friends, one after another. Then Noah appeared on the screen. The audience grew quiet. The little boy smiled into the camera. "Hi, Aunt Emily." Emily instantly covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. The audience watched silently. Noah continued. "When I was sick, I didn't know who was helping me." His voice shook slightly. "But now I do." The screen showed photos from his treatments, hospital visits, recovery days, moments with Emily, moments with Victor, moments of hope. Then Noah said something that brought the entire room to tears. "You saved my life before you even knew I was family." By now, many people in the audience were crying, including Victor, including doctors, including nurses, including Emily. Then Noah finished with one final sentence. "And now you're the aunt I always needed." The room erupted into applause, cheered, clapped. Some cried openly. Others hugged each other. For several minutes, the applause wouldn't stop. Emily stood there overwhelmed. Not because of recognition, not because of success, not because of fame, but because life had somehow given her something she thought she lost forever. Family. Years earlier, she lost a child, lost a marriage, lost hope. She believed her story was ending. Instead, it was only beginning. The pain never completely disappeared. Some losses never do. But life found a way to write a new chapter. A chapter filled with purpose, connection, and love. Today, thousands of families continue benefiting from the foundation she inspired. Thousands of patients receive help. Thousands of donors continue showing up, just as Emily once did, month after month, without expecting anything in return. Before we finish, tell me in the comments, if you discovered that someone you had been helping for years was actually family, how would you react? And do you think Emily's kindness changed more lives than she ever realized? If you enjoy emotional stories that inspire, move, and surprise you, be sure to subscribe to Shadow Flame. Stories for more unforgettable journeys like this one. Because sometimes the greatest miracles don't happen when people look for rewards. They happen when ordinary people choose kindness and never learn how many lives they truly changed.